Camp David has served U.S. presidents and their family as a summer hideaway ever since 1942, offering a cool mountain respite from the sometimes stifling summer heat of Washington, D.C. But Camp David is also used at other times of the year as a uniquely private place for both business and relaxation.
Camp David is an isolated area. Tourists cannot get close to it. It's fenced off. There's a large amount of government property there.
Presidential historian Michael Barone says the camp's isolation also makes it an ideal location for hosting foreign leaders and staging sometimes intensive negotiations as well.
President George W. Bush has hosted foreign leaders there. Prime Minister Tony Blair of Britain, who's just recently retired as Prime Minister, and several others have gone up there. And President Jimmy Carter conducted negotiations at Camp David with Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin and Egyptian President Anwar Sadat, and they reached an agreement known as the Camp David Accords in 1978, I believe it was.
And 87-year-old George Wireman of Thurmont, Maryland, the community closest to the camp, was here when it happened.
When Carter brought Begin and Sadat, then I realized, hey, we really got something here in Thurmont we can be proud of.
Wireman is a local historian in Thurmont. He recently shared these images from his scrapbook about the presidential retreat. He also shared his memories of the local institution known here as Cozy.
You know, the amazing thing about Cozy was the fact that it became headquarters for the news media. They'd follow the president when he headed for Camp David, but Cozy was as far as they'd get.
Cozy is a resort complex just 10 kilometers from Camp David. Less exclusive than its more famous neighbor, it is still about as close as most people will ever get to experiencing Camp David itself. There is even a Camp David museum. Vicki Grinder is Cozy's general manager.
All of the articles and pictures that you see in the Camp David Museum have been donated to Cozy. They've all been donated to us by the reporters that have stayed with us over the years.
News clippings and photographs of American presidents going back to Franklin Roosevelt in 1942 are a reminder of Thurmont's special status in the shadow of history.
It's a pride when you go somewhere and say, well, I'm from Thurmont, and people say, well, where is Thurmont, Maryland? Never heard of it. Well, have you ever heard of Camp David, the presidential retreat? Oh, yes, and then that puts us on the map.
One thing I'm very thankful for, and that is that the community of Thurmont realizes the importance of Camp David, that it's a place for the president to go in private and relax. We have never in any way, shape, or form commercialized on that idea. And that goes good with me, being a town historian.
Sometimes stories of what happens up on the mountain retreat known as Camp David find their ways into headlines and history books. But much of what is known about Camp David comes from the local people here who are its neighbors. George Dwyer, VOA News.